Hi there everyone and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman and I am so excited to show you this gorgeous Sea Dream collection of supplies from our friends at Stamperia. We have beautiful collage pattern papers in 12 by 12 and 8 by 8, plus several sheets of rice paper, all with a really pretty watercolor collage look. We have a stencil and we also have coordinating chipboard die cuts. Now I have 3 card projects to share with you today. Here's a sneak peek at one of them, and they're going to be featuring some simple techniques with gold foil and acrylic paint. As you can see, we have a lot to explore today, and I'm so glad that you're here. Come play with us. Let's start by taking a closer look at the Sea Dream collection, and we can begin with our 8 by 8 patterned paper pack. So this has 10 sheets of double-sided papers, all with a really pretty vintage watercolor seashore theme. Now, in addition to the shells and the whales, you have these beautiful large florals in the design too. Got kind of a weathered wood background on there, and there's also some vintage text. It's a really unique approach to this theme and one that I really love. Just take a look at how gorgeous this collage effect is. And of course, you've also got some elements here that you can use as your background. You can also cut some of these elements apart too. So this has 42 cutout images in the collection too. Just take a look at how pretty these are. So this is the 8 by 8 pack. Now we also have 12 by 12 paper pack. So let me bring this in here too, and you can see again 10 double-sided sheets and also 42 cutouts. Now, when I was doing my card projects for this webisode, I mixed between the 2 sizes of paper packs. So sometimes I was using the 12 by 12 as my background and then the 8 by 8 with some of the cutouts and vice versa. So you can definitely use them interchangeably. I just think these are so beautiful and such a unique approach to the theme too. Just take a look. Really has that Stamperia look to it. Really love these. So your pattern papers in 8 by 8 and 12 by 12. Now we also have a Sea Dreams stencil. Okay, this is the wonderful stencil. That's what it's called. It's a beautiful design that can be used in portions or as a background. Now, your stencil is going to be a lot cleaner than mine is. Now you can see I've really put this to use. I've been working with acrylic paint, and that's a technique that I'm going to show you, and it looks really nice with those collage sea themed papers. Okay, then we also have 6 sheets of rice paper. And I'll go through these one by one. This is the whale, so you can see beautiful large florals in combination with the whale, and again some of that beautiful background and more of the florals down here. We also have white flower, big beautiful blossom, and again some of the elements. Now these are from the stencil, so they'll all coordinate really beautifully. That's the white flower. We also have, let me get this, shells. Here's that beautiful vintage style shell, again with some of the florals on here. This is the texture, and this one is really a beautiful one and can of course be used in sections or as a larger piece. There's blue flowers to go with the white flowers, and just look at that big beautiful blossom on there. Really stunning. And then finally we have seashore. So again, you can use this in parts. You can use where it says seashore separately from the actual seashore image on here with the lighthouse. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous collection. Now we also have some chipboard die cuts. Now there are 40 elements in the pack, and you can't see them all here because I used many of them on my cards, but this is going to give you an idea. So you've got whales, you've got flowers, you've got shells, you've got the seashore theme, lots of circular images which go great as a card focal. And you can see a couple more of those beautiful whales and sea creatures and shells and more flower designs on here too. I really like that you've got a nice combination between sizes of images too. So some large focal elements as well as lots of really nice little accent pieces on here too. Now, with all of the cards that I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to be adding in a little bit of gold foil with the Wow Fab Foil sheets and also working in some paints. So I'm going to be using these two from the Dilutions line. So we're going to take a look at how to combine all of these elements together. Okay, now that we've seen the supplies we're working with, let's take a look at some demos. Let's begin with this slimline style card. So I've used the 12 by 12 pattern papers to cover the card front, and that was really a perfect fit. Now for the center area here, I'm using the bottom of the whale rice paper. So there was that beautiful whale at the top, and at the bottom a really gorgeous effect with this kind of filigree style and also a shell and some foliage on here too. Now for many of you, rice paper has become as much of a staple in your crafting stash as your pattern paper, but if you're new to it, let me show you how easy it is to use. So I'm going to move aside my card and I'll bring in this sheet of rice paper. So this is the blue flower. Just look at that big beautiful blossom on there. Now when I'm showing you the rice paper, I usually put a piece of white regular cardstock underneath so that you can see the design. But when I remove that, you'll notice that this is translucent. So whatever you layer this on top of will show through. Now if I flip this over, you can see that it's kind of like mulberry paper in that it's got these fibers in there. So if you're familiar with the classic mulberry paper, it's going to be something quite similar. It's going to tear really easily. You can also cut it with scissors. Now if you want to tear it, so if I want to tear around this little corner area here, all I need to do is get a damp brush, and here I'm using a little water brush. You can use a paintbrush. I like to put this down onto my craft mat and just kind of paint along the edges where I want to tear this. So you can see the paper darkening on there. Make sure I go all the way to the edges, and then just gently with my fingers tearing along that damp edge. If you bump into any of those fibers, you can just snip them with scissors, but it should tear really easily. So then what I can do is layer this onto either white cardstock, or I can put it down onto pattern paper. So if I've got this little piece, maybe I decide I want it to go up on this area here where it's a little bit open. I can pop that down like so. That would be really pretty. Now to do this, all I need to do is add a little bit of white glue to my cardstock. So I'm going to grab a brush, got some white glue on here, and I use the Creative Expressions acrylic glue, the white acrylic glue. Just add a little bit of water to that to make it nice and fluid, and then I'm going to paint it onto my cardstock. I recommend you do that rather than putting it onto the rice paper, because we all know what can happen with something that's quite lightweight with glue on it. It can tend to stick to itself. And then just pop that down and kind of smooth out from the center to the edges. And then what I'll do is just come back and add a little bit more adhesive along the outside edges, just to make sure that everything is adhered down. And then I've got my beautiful image. Now what I can do is, when this is all dry, I can just trim off that edge there, or even just kind of fold it around the edge of there, and I've got a really beautiful layered effect. When this dries, you'll also have another texture, because this will dry a little bit soft, almost not fuzzy, but it'll definitely have a different texture to the smoothness of the cardstock. And then it just needs to let that dry, and I'm ready to put it to use. Now I do recommend that you put your gluey paintbrush into some water quickly so that the bristles don't get glued permanently. Okay, I'm going to bring back in my card and show you something else here too. So you'll notice that I've got some dark edges around the outside edge of my card, but also around this rice paper center on here. When I tilt this, I think you can see, especially here, that I've got some gold foiling on there. So basically what I've done is I've used my Dilutions Balmy Night paint to adhere my foil onto the edge of my card. Really easy process to do. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to grab a piece of my beautiful pattern paper here. And I've also got my Balmy Night, again working onto my craft mat. And I need to have a little bit of my gold foil. Now this is a fairly wide sheet. Now all I need is a little snippet. As you can see, I use my foil until it's pretty much bald. This is such a great value on this foil because you can use it and use it and use it until there's no more gold foiling left on here. Okay, so what I'll do is just get a little bit of my paint onto my craft mat. Now you can use a brush. I like to use my finger for this. Find it works a little bit more easily. I can maintain control, and of course I've always got it with me. Okay, so I've got my paint on here, and then what I'm going to do quickly while the paint is still wet, I'm going to pop my foil down on here. Now I'm really going to press this down, make sure that that foil makes contact with that wet paint. I'm going to kind of lift this up, smooth it down, and then I'm going to put it underneath something heavy. And I usually put it down underneath the plates from my die cutting machine because that's just a perfect weight and I've got them ready to hand. Stack of books will do the trick too. And let this dry. So let's do that for a minute or two and then we'll come back and take a look. Okay, we've been a couple of minutes with this foil sitting underneath my die cutting plate. So let's take a look. Of course, the longer you leave it, the more gold you will have. But when I'm pulling this off, I think you can see I've got some really nice touches of shine on here. So not only that beautiful Balmy Night paint, but also just a little hint of gold shine as well. So usually if I'm doing all four sides, I'll do all four sides in one go and let it dry. If you ever want to come back and add more, of course, that's easy to do too. Okay, let's take another look at the card here, and you can see there's that shine around my rice paper edge, and I've mounted that up onto some white cardstock just so that the pattern from the rice paper doesn't compete too much with the pattern of my background. I've also got a strip of pattern paper going across the front. I've got a cutout from the 8x8 paper pack, and it just fitted really perfectly on this Slimline card. And then I've also got it mounted up onto some scallop circle die cuts on here. Those are from hot off the press. And then I've added some of the die cuts from the pack as well, the flowers as well as these little starfish here. A little bit of jute twine will add some softness as well. Now for my card inside, more of that beautiful pattern paper, also with some pretty heavy Balmy Night edging on here. Here's some more of the rice paper just as another accent on there. And again, it's really nice and tactile. I have a cutout from the paper pack. I've got a dazzle message. And my favorite, I've got this beautiful die cut from the collection, this little dolphin with his roses on there. I just think is such a beautiful finishing touch for the inside of the card. Okay, so one other card that I want to show you is this one here. Now again, we've got rice paper. I've got that big, beautiful flower that we just looked at. Now this rice paper has been glued down onto the card front, which was covered first with pattern paper. And when I'm tilting this, I think you can see some more foil shine on here. So this has been done with the Distress Splatter Brush, and this is another really fun technique and a great way to use the foil. So what I'll do here is bring in another piece of that beautiful pattern paper. Again, I've got a piece of foil, just a little scrap. As you can see, I've used this before. That's okay, it's still good. And again, I'll be using my Balmy Night paint. And I'm just going to put a little bit down here. Now I'm also going to use another paint, and this is the Desert Sand, another Dilutions paint. Give that a bit of a shake and put a little bit down onto my craft mat. Now for this, I'm going to use my Distress Splatter Brush, and you guys know that I love this tool. It comes in handy for so many different techniques, and this is one of them. So this is a little bit damp, so I'm able to mix some water with my Desert Sand, and I'm just going to splatter this on here. And rinse that off a little bit, come back and pick up some of the Balmy Night. Love those names. And splatter this on here too. So I've got a bit of the blue, I've got a bit of the tan. It's wet, and I can quickly pop my foil sheet down on here. Again, smooth that down and set it underneath something heavy. So we're going to do that and then come back and take a look. Okay, so we've let this sit for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to pull this off. And you can see that I've got some beautiful shine, spattered shine on here. I've also got little bits of the blue and little bits of that tan paint spattering on here too. So if the paint dried really quickly before I was able to pop that foil down on there, I'm able to get the effects of that as well. Just really pretty, subtle and beautiful. Okay, so let me show you the rest of my card here. We'll take a look. Now, I've got my cutout from the 8x8 paper pack, and again, I've got some more of the die cuts on here and a little bit of ribbon. Now, for my card inside, I have another strip of the patterned paper. Got a Dazzle Sentiment, and for this, I used a little bit of that desert sand to paint inside the loop of the heart. So just to add another little effect in there. Okay, I've got another card to show you, and this one is using the stencil. So you can see here not only the stenciled words on here, but then also this beautiful, just a really elegant design on here. Perfect in combination with the Sea Dream patterns, but also I think just really beautiful on its own. Now, of course, you can stencil with inks. You can use all kinds of coloring mediums like the opal polish, but I also love to stencil with paint. So let's take a look at how to do this. I'm going to be using the hot off the press blending brush for this one, and it works out really nicely. So let's take a look at how to do this. I'm going to bring in my stencil, which, as I mentioned, has been used, as you can tell. It's a really gorgeous stencil, and it just is such a beautiful and versatile design. Okay, I'm going to bring in a piece of, this is from the 8x8 paper pack. So you can stencil, of course, right onto white cardstock or off-white cardstock. I really like doing it onto pattern paper. I'm going to move aside this piece of cardstock, and then I'm just going to pop this down here. Okay, kind of position that where I want it to go. And you can use some of the hunky-dory stencil tape if you'd like to, if you want to kind of hold everything down in position. It sometimes makes it easier. And I'm going to put a little bit of the Balmy Night paint here, again, on my craft mat. Now, I'm going to pick up some of the paint with my brush. You'll notice I'm kind of scooting it out a little bit. I don't want it globbed onto the brush because then it can tend to get everywhere on the stencil. I just want a nice even amount on here. And then just gently, I'm going to kind of work in a gentle circular motion. I can always come back and add more. And go as much or as little as I want to on here. The stencil is so easy to use. Once you get stenciling with especially with the paint, it goes on so beautifully. It's so easy to do. Okay. Let me lift this off, and oops, I've got one little area on there on that M. I want to make sure that I get that. And I'll just gently lift this up. Always lift up rather than sliding off, and take a look. So pretty. Okay, I'm going to move aside my stencil. I will wash that, I promise you. And I'm also going to clean off my brush, just get a little bit of water on it and then kind of scuffle it off onto a towel. And then I'll be a little bit more thorough about cleaning that off after we're done. But just take a look. How beautiful is that? The stenciling comes out perfectly. The paint adds just such a nice bit of contrast onto that pattern paper. So again, you can do it onto regular cardstock, you could do it onto the rice paper, and you can do it onto pattern design like I have here. Okay, so for the rest of the card here, I've got some heavy blue paint going along the edges. I've got a bit of that splattered gold foiling on here. I've got one of my die cut, chipboard die cuts on here, again onto a scalloped circle, just to give a little bit more presence. I have another Dazzle sentiment down here. For the card inside, I've got some more stenciling. I've got the whale rice paper, and he's just kind of peeking along on there, out from underneath all of these chipboard flowers. Now the rice paper is extending past the border of this pattern paper on here too, just to create a really nice kind of collage design. Got a cutout on here, and then a little simple Hugs Dazzle as the finishing touch. Okay, so we have played with rice paper, we've done stenciling, we've done foiling, we have done a lot, and I think you can see how versatile this collection is from our friends at Stamperia. I think it is absolutely a stunning set of designs, and I hope you have a lot of fun with yours. Thank you so much for joining me today, and a big thank you for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. We're just so glad that you're here with us. I can't wait to see what you create, so do be sure to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.